to make this fight?
Ready to fight with Jake Paul.
On MMA rules? Yes, I'm ready, but I need to rest.
Та чекай, хай не поспілкується.
We heard that you were challenging Usyk to a street fight in MMA. Is that true?
Well, yeah, he called me out to do MMA.
We're talking about heavyweight Usyk who beat Tyson Fury.
Yeah, he wants to fight me in MMA, and our teams are talking, and I'm interested in it.
That'd be huge.
To be honest, that scares me more than any of the other shit that scares me more than fighting Anthony Joshua for sure.
But you know Usyk's a wrestler.
I think, yeah, he's like an Olympic wrestler.
Yeah, he knows how to wrestle.
Whoa, Olympic wrestler?
Usyk's a dog. He knows how to wrestle, he knows how to fight, he knows how to kill.
Am I seeing this right now? Did Oleksandr Usyk just call Jake Paul out, not in a boxing fight, but in an MMA cage? The pride of UK, two-division, undisputed heavyweight champion of the world? We all know he got judo and wrestling and Muay Thai experience. Woohoo! You guys, he wants to fight Jake Paul? Bro, my goodness, man, what's going on?
Usyk just dropped a bombshell. His post wasn't a tease, it was a straight-up declaration of war. Good plan at Jake Paul, but I'm not here for 5th place, only 1st. Soon I'll close the book on boxing, and after that I'll be waiting for you in the cage. Let's see if you've got the balls or just a hunger for hype. That says it all. Usyk isn't playing games, he's aiming to finish boxing on top and then drag Jake Paul into his world. No gimmicks, no speculation, this feels inevitable. The king is calling, and the challenge couldn't be clearer. Question is, does Jake dare answer? Or is Usyk too big, too skilled, and too dangerous to touch? Spotlight swung right back onto Jake Paul after Usyk's thunderous callout, and Jake didn't duck it. His words? Yeah, I want to be like Holly Holm here and test my skills in the cage. That's pure hunger. Jake isn't just talking boxing stardom anymore. He's chasing a legacy-defining leap. But let's be real, Oleksandr Usyk isn't some random test run. He's a once-in-a-generation warrior, a man who closes chapters in blood and glory. Jake's ambition is clear, but the danger is even clearer. Step into the cage with Usyk, and it's either a career-defining shock or a brutal reality.
Oleksandr Usyk wants to fight Jake Paul in an MMA fight. So there have been talks about Jake Paul potentially fighting Oleksandr Usyk, but now Usyk has made it clear that he not only wants that fight once his boxing career comes to an end, but he also wants the bout to be in MMA. And honestly, I kind of like this. Nobody wants another exhibition boxing bout, but an MMA fight between two guys who have never fought in the cage and have expressed interest in wanting to is the best move for both of them.
Paul isn't backing down, he's doubling down. When he says I should fight him in MMA, that's not just chatter, that's intent. With Usyk already firing shots and both camps stirring the pot, this matchup feels less like a fantasy and more like a storm brewing on the horizon. But let's be clear, Oleksandr Usyk in a cage isn't just another opponent. It's a challenge that goes way beyond hype, beyond pay-per-views. Jake's asking for the ultimate test against a man who's built his career on defying limits.
He's the GOAT. He's one of the best of all time. Like, seriously, silence everyone. That's why I said to him, zip it and throw the key away.
You weren't calling him out then, no? He was?
A little bit.
Fight him
in MMA.
Okay.
I want to see Usyk in MMA. Our teams have already been talking about it.
Admits Jake Paul has talent, but stops short of calling him world class. And when the name Usyk enters the conversation, Hearn's doubts only grow louder. The risk here is undeniable. Stepping into a cage with a generational great isn't just bold, it's borderline reckless. But here's the twist. Every critic, every doubt, every dismissive word is exactly what fuels Jake Paul. If Usyk really does wait for him in MMA, this fight won't just be about wins and losses. It'll be about proving whether Jake is a pretender or a pioneer.
The proof will be in the pudding. I don't believe. By the way, I've said that I think Jake Paul is better than some fighters, but I don't believe you will ever get close to being.
Did you think the scorecards were correct?
Jake Paul in MMA. With his boxing legacy nearly complete, Usyk's eyes are already fixed on the next battlefield. That cold, matter-of-fact delivery leaves no doubt. This isn't about hype, it's about proving dominance across two worlds. For Jake, this just got real. Usyk isn't teasing, he's targeting. The question now isn't if it's when. Goff cuts through the noise. This isn't just social media chatter. He points to that Wembley face-off as undeniable proof that Usyk versus Jake Paul is alive and breathing. Usyk has one last piece of business in boxing, but after that, the road seems set. This feels less like fantasy matchmaking and more like a calculated path to history, with Usyk making sure everyone knows Jake is in his crosshairs.
Oleksandr Usyk delivers frosty response to Jake Paul. Ambitious 5-year plan. Oleksandr Usyk insists he is dead serious about fighting Jake Paul, but wonders whether his rivals feel the same. The pair did face off in Wembley Stadium, I remember that, earlier this year. Usyk is expected to have one more professional bout, after which he will be free to pursue a crossover clash. Yes, he is considering a crossover clash with Jake Paul, even though Jake Paul is a boxer. Well, wait till you hear this, right?
Johnny Nelson keeps it real. He gives Jake Paul credit for the progress, but reminds us he's still a novice in the grand scheme. Against a generational talent like Usyk, that inexperience can be the difference between survival and a brutal lesson. But here's the twist. Nelson also highlights what sets Jake apart: his ambition. Most fighters would never even dream of chasing Usyk into a cage, but Jake's hunger makes this storyline impossible to ignore.
Jake Paul's not a bad little fighter. I actually think he's not a bad novice. He's just that, a novice. I'd been flipping and flopping. I thought,
Johnny Nelson keeps it real. He gives Jake Paul credit for the progress, but reminds us he's still a novice in the grand scheme. Against a generational talent like Usyk, that inexperience can be the difference between survival and a brutal lesson. But here's the twist. Nelson also highlights what sets Jake apart: his ambition. Most fighters would never even dream of chasing Usyk into a cage, but Jake's hunger makes this storyline impossible to ignore.
Why is Usyk lowering himself? The greatest of great champions have a row with Jake Paul.
Yeah, I don't know, but I think there was a lot of noses put out of joint when, you know, maybe people in my situation who are ex-fighters who think, I could get the Jake Paul fight, and then turns out he's picked, you know, the former lightweight champion of the world who's still boxing. It's like, because he's bounced from Joshua to this.
Jake Paul's conviction is unshakable. When he says it's going to happen, it's more than bravado. It's the belief of a man who thrives on the underdog role. He's not chasing clout anymore. He's chasing a place in combat sports history. Against Usyk, the odds are overwhelming, but that's exactly where Jake finds fuel. If he pulls it off, it wouldn't just be an upset. It would rewrite the narrative of crossover fighting forever. Even the harshest critics have to admit, Paul's relentlessness is making this feel less like fantasy and more like destiny.
Is it happening or no? It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. I want it to happen here. All the odds stacked against me. I believe that I will beat him and shock the world and create one of the biggest upsets.
Carl Froch brings that trademark bluntness, tearing into Jake Paul and painting a picture of absolute destruction if he faces Usyk. It's vintage Froch, no sugarcoating, no middle ground. But here's the twist. Froch might be underestimating the very thing that's defined Jake's career so far: defiance. Paul has built his name by proving doubters wrong, one step at a time. Sure, Usyk is a generational monster, but the fight game has always thrived on the unpredictable. If Jake can last rounds, land shots, or even just show composure against a man like Usyk in MMA, it shakes the whole narrative. Froch's dismissal may fire up the hardcore fans, but for everyone else, it just adds more fuel to the what-if fire.
But actually now, Jake Paul has got to think about what he's doing next. If you're that good and you think you're clever, why don't you fight Usyk? Oleksandr Usyk, he'll fight you. Let's see how that works out for you. You get fucking flattened.
Eddie Hearn strikes that middle ground perfectly, respectful but realistic. He doesn't sell false hope, making it clear Jake Paul isn't anywhere near world champion level, especially against a generational talent like Usyk. But at the same time, he tips his hat to Paul's discipline, consistency, and visible growth. That's important because coming from a promoter of Hearn's stature, it's not empty praise. It proves Jake has carved out legitimacy in a sport that initially laughed him off. The real gap Hearn points to is experience. Jake hasn't had that defining real fight against a proven elite, and Usyk is about as elite as it gets. But the fact that conversations even exist around Paul stepping in with Usyk shows just how far Jake's journey has come. From YouTuber to potential opponent of one of boxing's pound-for-pound kings, that alone speaks volumes.
Entitled to have a dream? No, seriously, I'm being serious. I think there's absolutely no way he can beat a world champion and become world champion. But I will say he's improving a lot. He's dedicated to the sport. I don't know how good he is because he hasn't really faced a real fighter yet. It's not his fault.
Jake Paul makes it crystal clear. I want the smoke isn't just a slogan, it's a mission statement. He's not negotiating or testing the waters. He's throwing himself straight into the fire. That kind of mentality, confidence over caution, is exactly what polarizes him. Some call it reckless, others call it fearless, but nobody can deny it. Makes him must watch.
In August, Oleksandr Usyk's business partner said of the Ukrainian's next step, the team is currently working on the next fight. We're looking at a few options, focusing on those who make sense, both sport-wise and in terms of audience interest. And
exactly. Duke McKenzie's warning cuts through the hype like a blade. Saying Jake Paul could end up hospitalized isn't just harsh talk, it's a brutal reality check about the gulf in class. Usyk's speed, precision, and fight IQ are weapons that can dismantle even elite heavyweights, let alone someone still proving himself. But that's where the fascination lives, the danger. High risk, high reward. Jake Paul has built his brand on walking into storms he shouldn't survive, and the Usyk challenge fits that narrative perfectly. Even if he loses, just sharing a cage with a generational talent elevates him beyond the YouTuber label. And if against all odds he survives or even stuns Usyk, it would shake combat sports to its core.
That man could be hospitalized and he may not. It could end really, really badly for him.
What does that mean then? Does that mean that whoever decides to put on this fight has to be a little bit careful about how they do it, or is
it depends in terms of the fight? I mean, you can have a choreographed exhibition with Mike Tyson on a Zimmer frame, and everyone gets paid. You can have him fighting Julio Cesar Chavez, who was disengaged and old.
Perfectly put, McKenzie's warning strips away the spectacle and drags us back to the cold truth. This isn't showbiz, it's survival. Against Usyk, every mistake costs dearly. He's not a novelty opponent or a stepping stone. He's a master technician who's conquered giants at the highest level. That's what makes this so gripping. Jake Paul is treating a life or death contest like a chance to etch his name into history. For some, that's reckless bravado. For others, it's the exact madness that fuels legends. Either way, if Paul truly walks into the cage with Usyk, the world won't be watching for entertainment. They'll be watching to see if he survives, shocks, or shatters. Want me to expand this into a full expert reactions real-style narration, lining up voices like McKenzie, Nelson, Frosh, and Hearn, each with their own spin on the danger versus legacy theme.
That's quite a concern, isn't it? I mean, that should be the forefront of everybody's mind.
I think so. I think, you know, there's the fight business and then there's the fight game, and you know the way they're talking about it, they're talking about it like it's a game.
Perfect closing hype. You framed it like the ultimate gamble. Paul chasing immortality, Usyk chasing dominance beyond boxing. The beauty here is the no middle ground stakes. Either a fairy tale shock that rewrites Paul's story forever, or a brutal reality check that elevates Usyk's legacy to untouchable. If you want, I can polish this into a final promo script with cinematic punch, short, sharp sentences, heavy pauses, and that fight night trailer energy to leave fans buzzing.